Welcome to our March edition of Sports Highlights right here in the studio. Our program airs on Mondays at 7, 2, and 7, weekends at 9 a.m. on Cox Cable 47, 517, NMPSTV.com, YouTube, and all over social media. Tell your friends, and congratulations again to the crew for the 30th anniversary last month, the cast and the crew. Our guests for this show are Dana Robbins, Levi Robbins, and Claudel Clark. We're going to start off with Dana and Levi Robbins. Dana is the Newport News lacrosse program manager, and Levi is the Newport News lacrosse player, mother and son. Dana, ladies first, how are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Glad to be here.
You've settled here from Texas. You've been here for several decades now. I'm sure you enjoy Virginia, first of all.
I do. Virginia is like home now. I've been here for about 22 years, so I talk about going home to Texas, but really home is in Virginia.
There you go, there you go. All right, Levi, how did you get involved in lacrosse?
The way I got involved was one day my mom was on Facebook and asked me if I wanted to play lacrosse. I had no clue what the sport was, and we watched a couple lacrosse games, and then the next day I showed up to practice and started playing.
Very good. What grade are you in at school?
I'm a sophomore
At
Warwick High School.
Very nice, very nice. So that's the unique blend of it too, Dana, is that there's all types of student athletes from different schools all collaborating for practice at Menchville.
That's right. So we play under the organization of Hampton Road Lacs, short for lacrosse, and it is a club sport that Menchville hosts for us. So any student in Newport News that goes to school in Newport News can play, and the practices are held at Menchville.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about some of your teammates, because that's kind of a unique blend that you're not competing against these kids that go to different schools, but they're actually teammates. We'll talk about the various schools and some of your teammates.
All of our teammates are from either Menchville or Warwick so far.
We'll talk about the schedule and the season coming up, because that's coming up here now, but it's not just a Newport News.
That's right. So we are taking registration all the way up until our first game on March 28th. Really easy to register at hrlax.com. And we have scholarships available, so there really isn't any reason that someone should shy away from trying to participate, and we welcome anybody to come and try it out. No experience necessary at all.
Very nice. Talking lacrosse right here with Dana and Levi Robbins. Levi, talk about some of the basic equipment you need to play lacrosse. And we see the helmet here and the good old lacrosse ball, but talk about what else.
The basic equipment is helmet. You need elbow pads, chest pads, and then gloves too. They're like hockey gloves, so they're padded gloves. And then your stick. And this is a defensive lacrosse stick.
Keep it up there for a little bit. Let's look at it. He's got a net right there as well.
Yep.
So that's got a long span there. I mean, that can really stretch. If you're tall, that can really stretch a long part of the field.
6 feet.
Yeah, that really is. And I guess you have to be careful because you wear helmets, like you said. Unlike field hockey, the balls here are rubber, but they can still be sore too, right?
They hurt.
Yeah. What have you been inspired the most about lacrosse in general? It's great to see these kids come together, especially the fact that it's not a varsity sanctioned sport in high school, but the love of lacrosse is really growing.
It is, and we only, like Levi mentioned, got involved last year. A Facebook post from someone trying to promote the sport. And so we went to practice the next day, started games about 2 weeks later. And so one of the most fascinating things is seeing kids learn the sport in just a matter of a couple of weeks and fall in love with it. It's a dynamic sport in which, to the degree that an individual player practices on their own and increases their own game, the cohesiveness of the team just comes together beautifully.
Now, we know in college there's girls and boys lacrosse. What about for the Lacs?
Same here. We have a girls lacrosse team as well that also practices at Menchville and is under the HR Lax organization. So girls and boys are both welcome to play 9th through 12th grade.
Very nice. What have you? What position do you enjoy, and what sport did you play prior to lacrosse?
The position in lacrosse I play is defense. I love that position. And the sports I played before this, I played football, and I used to play soccer. And right now I do powerlifting as well.
Now you have a little brother. I'm sure he really
do.
enjoys it as well, right?
Yeah, he loves it.
He feeds off your energy, correct? Very good. And how does he evolving, your youngest son?
Yeah, so Jackson is playing with another group called Coastal Crush that is kind of a feeder team organization for HR Lax. So they are 6th through 8th grade. So he's playing his first season with them this year and has been participating in various clinics and practices from Williamsburg to the South Side. So he's definitely following in his brother's footsteps.
Very nice. What has surprised you the most about the sport? Is it the footwork or is it the passing the ball? Because y'all do a lot of passing. Sometimes in colleges you see a lot of scoring. What's the average score in your competition?
Average scoring probably about 12 points a game, 12 to 15, 10, 15. Probably that's the average.
And how about the periods? How does the time work for, like for football, there's 4 quarters. How about for lacrosse?
For our quarters, it's 12 minutes a quarter.
So you have to be in good shape to play.
It is a absolutely fantastic full body workout. You've got to have the cardio, you've got to have the strength. You use your core, your arms for passing, the running. Yeah, it's a dynamic sport in terms of staying in shape.
Which means they burn a lot of calories, which means they're also hungry after a game or competition.
Oh my.
Yeah. You're buying the whole grocery store.
Very.
So what advice would you give to young kids that want to play lacrosse, whether at the club or collegiate level?
I would say that it doesn't matter if you have any experience or not. Just like I did, just get in the game if you really want to. Just give it your all. And one thing for new players is practicing independently by themselves. One of the things all coaches tell me is play wall ball, so that you find a wall by yourself and just pass and throw against the wall.
Right, that's a great point too, because it's the before and after that counts. A lot of times, we see the kids that just show up during the day of practice when the season starts. It's better to play all year round.
Absolutely. It develops the hand-eye coordination because not only are you catching and throwing the ball in the stick, but you're doing it when you're running. So the agility that you learn by, through the wall ball is really helpful.
You've seen Patrick Mahomes play for the Chiefs. Do you see how he does the no-look passes? How is your peripheral vision? Because you need really good peripheral vision playing lacrosse.
When I play defense, I'm always looking at the goal, the person with the ball, and then my man that I'm on, even if I'm not on the man with the ball. So if I'm looking at the ball where it's going, and my peripheral, I need to be looking at my man. So it's difficult, but you get used to it.
How did y'all pick Menchville for a practice field? Now, they have a lot of open space, more than any other school around here does. Is that the reason?
I think it is.
Okay. But you don't necessarily play there.
No, our games
No
are
games.
our games are all over between Williamsburg to Virginia Beach. So in Norfolk, Newport News, Williamsburg, and the teams are from all of those areas as well.
We're talking to Dana Robbins and Levi Robbins. Dana is the Newport News lacrosse program manager, and Levi is a player as well. And you talk about, have you seen your schedule for 2022?
I haven't seen it yet.
We haven't released the schedule yet until all registration is closed on March 28th.
So you still have plenty of time.
We
Yep.
do. And there will be 10 games, and this is will be our spring session.
Right.
We also have a fall session, but it is not as because of football going on, it's not as participated in as the spring session.
Well, the good thing about March now that we're in is, spring forward with the clock. It's very difficult to do anything in the fall when it's dark at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So I think we're all looking forward to daylight longer. That does help in your sport too, correct?
It does.
So you mentioned the girls playing too. Talk about some of the things that you've seen with the girls that are interesting with lacrosse as far as participation. Because I'm sure field hockey is very popular with the females in high school. Do you think this will evolve into a high school sport eventually? Is that the goal?
That would be a dynamic goal to have. It has actually already happened in Virginia Beach. So effective this year, lacrosse comes underneath the VHSL umbrella. So they we'll still be playing them, but we would love to have that happen in Newport News as well because of the funding and the publicity that it would provide for it. So,
Absolutely. And you look at some of the schools too, Levi. Virginia's always had a good lacrosse team. Christopher Newport, they're out there practicing every single day. But there's a lot of colleges that play lacrosse. Hampton University's got a great lacrosse program as well. We did an interview with them when they first started. What are some of the colleges that you look up to, and what do you try to learn from watching them on TV?
Yeah, watching lacrosse games is a really good way to get better too. I know UVA is a really good lacrosse team. One of my friends who's graduated last year plays at VMI for the club team there. He's doing pretty good at that.
Very nice. So yeah, I guess the more you watch, the more you grow. It's like homework or anything else. The more you put yourself into it, engage, the better you're going to be.
Exactly.
Right, and of course you work with the parents too. So a lot of it's coordination of schedules. I'm sure that's not easy, Dana.
Woo! You know, I love our parents. We all just want to see our kids, succeed and enjoy the game and the love of the sport. So my role is primarily just to coordinate the fundraising efforts, make sure everybody has their jerseys, their physicals, and that we have all the equipment we need for game day, scorekeepers, that kind of thing.
And you get to wear pretty loose clothing, right, as far as
is.
attire. Now, as far as the uniforms, are they all wearing the same thing? Matching shoes, socks? How important is that? Both of you.
Matching shoes, not so much, but definitely the jerseys and our shorts, that's the matching parts.
Yeah.
Yep, the uniforms are very uniform for all of the players.
All right, very good. Well, Dana and Levi, thank you for enlightening us about lacrosse, and best of luck on your time, your talent, and the treasure of playing this wonderful sport for girls and boys both. And once again, leave us the parting shot about lacrosse.
It is a dynamic sport. I am so thankful we stumbled upon it. The teamwork between those players, when you see a game come together, just the strength, the athleticism, the agility that's out there, it's addictive.
Very good. They were newbies too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Very.
All right. Well, thank you guys both, and stay tuned now for Claudel Clark. We'll be back with more sports highlights after these messages on our March edition. Stay tuned.
You're watching NNPS TV. Catch sports highlights on Mondays at 7, 2, and 7, and on Saturdays and Sundays at 9 a.m. Visit us online at nnpstv.com to view all your favorite episodes. NNPS TV, watching education happen.
And welcome to our second segment of our March 2022 show, Sports Highlights, of course, in the studio right here. Hope you enjoyed our first two guests talking about the wonderful sport of lacrosse. We'll shift to another whole group right here. Claudel Clark, Executive Director of Hampton Roads Sports Commission. He went to and attended Norfolk State University. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
And of course, you've got a lot of background having been a baseball coach as well. Talk about your sports background.
Well, played at Norfolk State as a player, and was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and coached at Norfolk State for 12 years. As we discussed, a lot of baseball experience, and especially on the college and the professional level.
I got to ask you about that. You know, of course, Norfolk State's in the MEAC. Back in the day, they were in the CIAA. Hampton University is since divorced, separated, and gone to another conference. I got to get your opinions because that was the #1 rivalry for Norfolk State. Of course, Hampton was in the CIAA. They were in the MEAC. Now they're going to be going to the Colonial. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, they're trying to do what's best for them. and they feel like their sports profile and their campus profile has grown to rival some of these larger schools and to compete in these larger conferences. And they had to do what they feel like they need to do financially. So they have TV rights and licensing rights, and trying to get exposure that they need on the level that they want to get it. So they are trying to position themselves to reap the most benefits they can athletically. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with the CAA.
Absolutely. And of course, Claudel Clark's the executive director of the Hampton Roads Sports Commission, and you've seen it. Youth, you've seen professional athletes come out of your city. So you've got a good blend of a lot of things that you bring to the table. What is the main focus of the Hampton Roads Sports Commission?
Well, it's really to expose sports in the region, provide access to sports by way of those in the region, and then also to highlight the great facilities we have here and put them to great use.
We'll talk about some of the different sports that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and you have a lot of different events. You've even done cornhole. We've televised cornhole as far as sports highlights is concerned. Talk about some of the different sports you've done.
Certainly. So we kind of started off really based heavily with this Junior Olympics that comes around every 5 years. But due to COVID, we just could not have that. No, it was canceled, as were a lot of other events in the region. So we had to think about how could we strategically assemble this annual calendar of events. And cornhole was one of them. We also have a golf tournament. We have baseball plans. Recently had a basketball event that we did. And even have an esports event that's coming up. So a lot of things we're proud of to kind of create this annual sporting events calendar, and to, again, provide that access to a number of different sports to the youth in this area.
I think that's the key, is having that access, having that availability for these kids that sometimes might not have had that access. This gives them an opportunity to shine.
Certainly. In a lot of cases, not your mainstream sports. So could it be lacrosse, like we just talked about, or cornhole, or women's sports, or adaptive sports. A lot of times, we're just trying to stay out of the mainstream in some cases, just to provide opportunity and exposure to those who may not be on the front page of the paper, who may not be on an interview, or who may not get that headline coverage, but to let folks know that those coaches, those teams, and those organizations are also doing great work, and those student athletes are getting scholarships and doing very well in their sports field of play also.
Yeah, from a marketing and a TV standpoint, the Olympics were just on, and they were competing against the NFL, they were competing against college basketball, the NBA, they had the All-Star game, all that stuff, and that's always still something for the Olympic-type sports, the sports that you say kind of out of the box, to be considered mainstream. Look how long it took soccer to become mainstream in this country, so it does take a while. People are so glued. You played baseball, football, basketball, baseball, hockey as well, but these other sports exist too.
Certainly. Again, we just kind of get caught on these mainstream sports. As we were talking, the baseball season spans for months and months and months, overlapped by football, overlapped by basketball, but we just don't realize how many other sports are going on. So we really wanted to, that was part of our strategic goal, to really dig deep, to find out what other sports were out there, what other student athletes were achieving on a high level, what other organizations were looking to come into this area, what other sports teams were doing well across the country who were also doing well here that we were not so familiar with. And that has really created a lot of great impressions for us, and created a lot of content for the Sports Commission.
When you were at Great Bridge, did you know you had an interest in this at a young age?
Well, I certainly wanted to play. I always have these dreams of playing on a collegiate level or professionally. So I certainly knew I wanted to play sports, and baseball just is kind of what stuck and kind of took me as far as it did. I didn't know I was going to coach. I kind of got in that, not accidentally, but got a little slow start, a little rolling start into that, and it became almost a career at Norfolk State, 12 years. And now to be able to kind of put this corporate sponsorship experience along with sports experience, along with major event experience, and work at the chamber with the Sports Commission, it's almost been a dream come true to put all that together.
Right, we're talking to Claudel Clark. He's the executive director of the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. For more, go to nnpstv.com, at Greg Bick on Twitter. Thanks to our entire crew for our March Madness show. And of course, we talk about baseball at the major league level, 162 games. There's spring training if it's a normal season without strikes and everything like that. But the demand on your time when you were the coach, now you kind of control your own time. But when you have to travel all the time, that can also sometimes, as a business person, hinder your growth, because you're trying to get things done in this mobile world. But if you're just focused on one sport, you can't evolve sometimes as a human. Is that kind of how you see it as well?
Well, I mean, it's very rewarding. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, you recruit and you fundraise and you work with your boosters and you work with your coaches and administration and you try to put this great product on the field annually. But it's a very consuming thing. And what we see on TV, football, college coaches, baseball coaches, professional coaches, you know, it's a 24-hour thing.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you're asleep, but your mind's still going. You're up, you know, trying to get your staff together, trying to get the health of your players together, that practice plan, the game plan going. So it's a 24-hour thing, to be honest. So yes, it does prevent you from looking at some other things, exploring other opportunities, but it's very rewarding. So as I told you before, you know, once I kind of moved on or transitioned from that, again, was able to use that experience and use those ups and downs and use those that trial and error to kind of go with the event and the business connections now to put these events together. So it was just a very valuable experience.
You know this well, Claudel. We live in a fast-paced world. We don't live in a dial-up internet world no more. And sometimes baseball, you know that better than anybody, can be, with the young people, can be like, oh, really? Third inning, fourth inning. It's always known as a sport that hasn't evolved time-wise because there's no clock. But then you look at the coach at my school at George Mason, he's been there for decades. You look on the basketball Division I side, Jim Boeheim has been at Syracuse as a student, as an assistant coach, and the head coach since 1976. So the people that do love coaching, they're all in.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, as a business person who wants to get involved in everything, almost like a politician almost, you got to touch a lot of different hands.
Right. But I look at it as an opportunity. You know, so
Yeah.
you're not just tied to any one sport. So as I mentioned, we did basketball and cornhole and football even, and you know, certainly looking to do some baseball things. So it's just so rewarding to be able to touch these different sports and also meet the different ones involved with those sports. You know, over the course of this journey. So you might have a baseball community or a baseball background, but having been able to meet these basketball administrators and basketball coaches at the high school, college, or even the grassroots level has been very rewarding also, just to see how all these different leagues are put together and the people who promote them, just like on the baseball side and these other sports. It's just been very rewarding to meet these persons.
I think that's great because I remember when I went to Ferguson, I took PE, I played tennis, but I was exposed to the football coach, the basketball coach, the baseball coach, the track coach, and just like you, involved in baseball, but you still saw what Great Bridge did in other sports too. Then you evolved in Norfolk State, you saw coaching changes, so life was always in motion, and I think that probably helped you as a youth.
Certainly, and you're talking about things in motion and things changing. You just see how competitive this is.
Yeah.
You know, as the information age picks up, you know, administrators and fans and organizations want to win now, and they want great content now and great results now. So coaches, you know, have been kind of pushed to the limit to get their players ready to recruit, to get facility upgrades. Administrators have had to, you know, do great things to keep these programs on the cutting edge. So fans and sponsors and community stakeholders will want to stay engaged. So it's a much faster pace at this point, and it is very alarming and interesting to see how things have grown to this point.
And you're dealing with parents and youth from all over, everywhere. Talk about some of the various areas for competitions, not just Virginia. And of course, it takes their time and their talent to all come together. And just like you evolve, they evolve as well. They got to balance academics, athletics, and activities.
Of course. You know, you talk about you know, spreading out from the region, so you have showcases all up and down the eastern seaboard, to where you talked about George Mason back in the day, or Norfolk State. Now, you know, these college coaches are recruiting from all over, not just in their geographic region. So the challenge for scholarship for these student athletes has increased that much more. So they have to be even greater on the athletic field. Grades have to be even higher. Obviously, the behavior is no question. They really have to kind of be perfect in all three of these areas to be involved in this ever-increasing recruiting web.
Our interview is with Claudel Clark. Claudel, do you deal much with the Virginia High School League, or have you over the years?
I have, from a recruiting standpoint, understanding their rules, helping them to host events at Norfolk State and other places, and especially now with some of the things that we're doing, this high school all-star baseball game that we're entertaining, or we just recently completed the Bob Dandridge MLK Basketball Classic, which included high school regional basketball teams. So certainly a direct line now to the VHSL, and understanding their rules and working with their member institutions.
Yeah, Bobby Dandridge played with my all-time favorite player, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, Kareem was a great player, folks. You don't believe me? Look on YouTube. He played for the Bucks and the Lakers for 20 years. He dominated the Celtics with John Havlicek. Then he dominated Larry Bird's team. That's rare. Of course, I love Kareem, and that's my own endorsement of Kareem. But Bobby Dandridge played for the Wizards, who were back then called the Bullets, and he played with Kareem as well. So it's great to have a name like that associated with your event.
Certainly, it was great profile and then great enhancement. Had great teams from this regionalism through sports, we called it, from the South Side and the Peninsula, public and private. But to have his name as a part of that and to be able to explore and understand his great legacy right there at Norfolk State, right before Black History Month, was just tremendous.
Yeah, and of course, I had a chance to be part of Black History Month, seeing Howard playing Notre Dame in January. Then, of course, you talk about during the All-Star weekend, then a showcase HBCU basketball game there that brought new light to these
Howard
things.
and Morgan State?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Morgan State is from Baltimore. Howard is from Washington, D.C. But it takes a village to all come together, right?
Right. Well, it's just this neat movement.
Yeah.
Some civil and some public and then world issues have gone on to kind of create this, but that's what happens. To every action there's a reaction, and there's just this great act. You see it in college football with Deion Sanders. There's just this great call to action, and there's this great exposure and spotlight now on HBCU athletics, and it is good to see some of those professional athletes and companies stepping up to promote and to showcase those athletes.
Because these coaches are a leader of men and women both, so these players really look to their coaches. Not everybody can be Deion Sanders and be a household name.
Right.
I'll never forget one time I was in Norfolk Airport. I was a kid, he was a kid, but he was playing for Columbus. You remember that was AAA of the Yankees. And I said, "Are you really Deion Sanders?" He goes, "Do I need to show my ID?" So he really has always been a comedian from day one. But as sports evolves, as adults evolve, that like you said, it's a great age to be in, because you can connect with so many different parties.
Well, you talk about Deion Sanders. We talked earlier about Michael Kadire and Ryan Zimmerman, and then the newer age ball players that are coming through in all the different sports. So it is really neat to be in this position as this regional entity covering the region that's had such great athletes in all sports. To come from this area. So it's just a great time to be in this position, and a great time to be uncovering these stories about past and present athletes and athletes to come.
Yeah, Zimmerman and Kadire, two of the best all time. Leave us with a parting shot about the Hampton Roads Sports Commission, how people can connect with you.
Certainly, HamptonRoadSports.org or HR Chamber. HR Chamber means business. Both of those websites will take you straight to the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. And again, we just want to continue to partner with persons such as yourself, partner with cities on both sides of the water, Peninsula, South Side, just to continue to uncover these stories about great sports attributes and accolades that have happened, that are currently happening, and that will happen, and just to continue to provide access for these young men and women who are trying to make their way academically and athletically. That's what we want to be known for, and that's what we'll continue to kind of trailblaze to make sure they have these opportunities.
Yeah, don't let the bridge tunnel stop you folks. I mean, they're going to be building another bridge tunnel. I'm sure that's exciting too as well. Claudel, thank you for all your time and your talent and your treasure to this community.
Greg, thank you for the opportunity.
Very good. Claudel Clark, Executive Director of the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. Hope you enjoyed our prior two guests, Dana Robbins and Levi Robbins, talking about lacrosse. I want to thank our great crew today, led by Ray Price and Carl Daniels, for our wonderful show in the month of March. I'm Greg Barris. We'll talk to you soon.